We often treat sexual desire as if it were a biological hunger, a craving that strikes without warning, appearing spontaneously without any external help. When that sudden urge doesn't show up, particularly in long-term relationships, it's common for people to assume their internal wiring is failing. They wait for a spark that never arrives, concluding that their bodies are unable to function the way they used to. However, data shows a gap between physical response and mental interest. For men, there's about a 50% overlap between genital response and the feeling of being turned on. For women, that overlap drops to 10%. This is arousal nonconcordance. It is the clinical reality that the conscious mind and the physical body operate on separate systems. A person can feel mentally ready while the body is slow to react, or the body can respond to stimuli while the mind remains entirely indifferent. If the body and mind are driven by different gears, the feeling of being broken is actually a misunderstanding of the hardware. It suggests that human desire isn't a single unified signal, but a negotiation between two distinct processes. For much of the 20th century, researchers like Masters and Johnson relied on a linear theory of sexual response. They observed a sequence that began with internal desire, which then triggered physical arousal and stimulation. This spontaneous model is often fueled by the high dopamine levels and novelty found at the start of a relationship. While common in the honeymoon phase, this type of sudden, unprompted interest often decreases as a relationship matures and becomes familiar. In response to those limitations, Dr. Rosemary Basson proposed a circular model of sexual response, shifting the focus from internal hunger to external interaction. In this responsive model, a person starts in a state of neutrality. They aren't actively seeking sex, but they are receptive to it. When they encounter the right context or stimulation, physical arousal builds first, and the subjective feeling of desire then follows as a result of that interaction. Seeing desire as a reaction to a specific context, rather than a prerequisite that appears out of thin air, aligns the psychological theory with the biological data. It suggests that most people aren't lacking desire, they are simply experiencing it responsively. This mechanical split is further explained by the dual control model developed by researchers at the Kinsey Institute. This framework views sexual response as a balance between two opposing neurological forces. The first system is the sexual excitation system, or the accelerator. It functions at a subconscious level, scanning the environment for any cues, sights, sounds, or touches that the brain codes as sexually relevant. The second system is the sexual inhibition system, acting as a brake pedal. This system scans for reasons not to be aroused, such as stress, lack of privacy, or performance anxiety. If the brain perceives high levels of stress, it increases the production of cortisol, which engages the brake. In this state, even intense external stimulation can be blocked because the inhibitory system has prioritized safety and survival over pleasure. A sensitive inhibition system is a sign of a brain doing its job. It shows the body is prioritizing the environment and its own safety rather than functioning with a broken drive. The reason your body can react when your mind is elsewhere is that these responses are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. This is separate from the central nervous system, which manages your emotional motivations. The autonomic system manages involuntary reflexes, like your heart rate, controls your digestion, or how your eyes blink. These functions happen automatically, without requiring conscious intent. Genital tissues have a localized protective reflex. When they encounter certain stimuli, they automatically increase blood flow and lubrication to prepare the body for physical contact and prevent injury. Because this reflex is mechanical and involuntary, it triggers in response to the presence of stimuli, not the presence of interest. This produces the exact mind-body disconnect seen in arousal nonconcordance. The research suggests that for a significant portion of the population, these nonconcordant responses are the biological norm. In long-term relationships, desire is often something that is built through interaction rather than something that arrives beforehand. This mechanical split between mind and body is the reason a physical reaction cannot serve as an indicator of internal state. Lubrication or blood flow are autonomic reflexes, mechanical events that occur independently of mental agreement or pleasure. When couples understand these mechanics, they can move away from the pressure of feeling in the mood and instead focus on managing the context. By addressing the factors that engage the neurological brakes, they create the space for responsive desire to surface. Long-term intimacy becomes a process of communication and context building. It is about understanding the hardware of the body, rather than waiting for a sudden spark that was never intended to be the primary way we experience desire.